Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a learning tower. Well, if you're wondering what a learning tower is, it's one of these. Now, it's one of those things where you're able to get your young one up to the height of the counter with you to work at whatever it is you're working at the counter, whether you're in the kitchen making or baking something, or whether you're here in the shop working at the workbench. The design I've come up with is foldable, and there's a few things that I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants with here, but it all starts with some scrap 3/4 oak from the wood rack. Well, I have some pieces of red oak 3/4 of an inch thick. I have cut it to a width of 2.5 inches. So what I'm going to need for our initial frame for this are 2 pieces at 36 inches long and 2 pieces at 43 1/4 inches long. Now on each end of each of our boards here, regardless of their length, we're going to put a center line. Just like that. And as well, we're going to place a cross mark from the one end in 1 1/4 inches. And now I've set my compass for 1 1/4 inch radius, and we're just going to draw that radius on each end of each board. So now we have our 36-inch pieces, and what we're going to want to do is in one end, right at our center punch, we're going to drill a 7/8 diameter hole that is 1/16 of an inch deep. Once we get that drilled, we will use the center point there again and drill a through hole that is 25/64 of an inch. And in just a little bit, those holes will accept threaded inserts, but we're not going to install them just yet. What we want to do at this point now, with all of our pieces marked, I'm going to take it over to the belt sander and I'm going to sand each one of these to get the round profile that we want. And now in one end of each one of our longer 43 1/4 inch long pieces, we're going to drill a 5/16 of an inch diameter through hole. Well, I need a couple jig knobs to hold this A-frame together. So what I've done is I've drawn out the perimeter here of what I think would be a half decent jig knob, and then in the center I've drilled a 5/16 through hole. Now you can see there that I have a recess cut in that, or chiseled out, and that is for the head of a 5/16 diameter T-bolt. So this will sit inside here. I'm going to cut around the perimeter here to get the shape of my jig knob, and at that point, once I get them both cut, I'm going to trace their profiles onto here, cut them out, and then glue a top plate onto here. We're going to clamp that up, let it completely dry, sand it flush all the way around, and that'll be our jig knob complete. And once you get them sanded, your jig knob should look something like that. And now we can move on to the next step. And at this point, we can install our threaded inserts. So we'll just place them in our hole, get yourself a whack-ometer, and then just drive them home. And now we can place a 1/4 inch round over all the way around the perimeter on both sides of all 4 pieces of our frame. And once you get that done, you can give all these pieces a good sanding. Well, at this point now, on the inside edges of our 3-foot pieces, starting from the top, which will be where your threaded insert is, we want to measure down 2.5 inches. And we also want to measure down 20 inches. And at these points here, on the inside edges, we're going to drill a 3/4 diameter, 1/2 inch deep hole. While I was at the drill press and drilled those holes, I also drilled a through hole right in the middle and then countersunk on the outside of these pieces. The reason for that is we're going to be installing some 3/4 inch diameter dowels in both of those locations. They will eventually get screwed in place as well as glued, but I don't want to glue things just yet. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put these in place. We're going to clamp this assembly together. I'm going to drill the pilot holes for the screws, and just for now we're going to assemble the screws in place to hold the frame together. Then I'll show you what we've got at that point. And at this point we can just do a dry fit of everything here. Our longer pieces will sit in place with our jig knobs here like this. We're going to screw this other one in place, and once we get that done, we're going to want to make a mark on the outside here where the bolt protrudes. For that, we're going to cut that off, and we don't want it protruding through there because your little one's going to be in this area, so you don't want the bolt sticking through. So I'm going to get those marked and cut off, and then I think it's time for us to start looking at making the platform. Well, I know I said I was going to start on the platform, but there's one more dowel that I want to add. And just in the same way that we did these ones, with the 1/2 inch deep 3/4 inch hole, and then the countersink from the other end to screw it in with some number 8 screws, I have a 20 inch and 11/16 piece of dowel here. And it's 3/4 inch in diameter. I'm going to do the exact same thing here at the bottom, 2.5 inches up on the inner surface of our longer outside pieces of oak. We're now going to make our platform, and the first thing we need is the runners. So this is 3/4 inch oak. It's 2 inches wide, 16 inches long, and the first thing we want to do is place a center line on our piece. Now at one end we're going to come in 1 inch. We're going to do the same at our other end, and then we are going to place our compass here set at a 1 inch radius, and we will draw that circle at each end of our board. And we will repeat that on both boards. Now at one end, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to center punch this right in the middle, and we're going to drill a 3/4 inch diameter through hole at that point. And at this point we can take this over to the belt sander, and we're going to sand both of these profiles on each end of each board. Well, I have the legs, the 36 inch long pieces, set at 90 degrees to my table saw here and then held in place with some hand screw clamps. So I've unscrewed our 3/4 dowel, and all we're going to do is slide the rails of our platform onto that dowel. Just like that. So now what we need to do is get these rails at 90 degrees to our upright frame here, and then we'll place marks on this angled piece, the 43 1/4 inch long piece. We'll place marks as to the position of where this piece is going to go. Now there is a gap here, a 3/4 inch gap. We're going to take care of that afterwards, but for now we can at least mark it because we have some more holes to drill. So we just make sure that this is square to our upright, and once we're happy with that, I have an offcut of this actual piece to fill that 3/4 gap, and you can see here where I've placed marks top and bottom to show us the positioning of where that platform is going to mount. Now, I've done that on both sides. So before we carry on much further here now, there's a couple holes that we need to drill. So we need to place a center mark here in our lines where it shows us where our platform is. We know that we made this 2.5 inches wide, so at 1 1/4 inches in, we're going to place a line, and then halfway in between these two lines, we're going to place a center mark. And at this point in both of our longer uprights, we're going to drill a 5/16 inch diameter through hole. Okay, so what I've done is I've drilled a larger hole in this spacer piece, and I have clamped our platform support back to the position that it belongs. Now I need to mark this hole on our platform piece. So I'm just going to take our 5/16 drill bit, I'm going to place it through the hole that we drilled. It should pass right through that larger hole in our spacer, and I'm just going to give it a light tap. You don't want to tap it too hard because you don't want to snap off the brad points. So just give it a little tap. That's it. We'll just take that out, and we should have, at this point, a mark right there to show us exactly where the hole goes. And at both of those points, just like we did earlier in the build, we drilled a 1/16 deep, 7/8 diameter hole, and then in the middle of that, a 25/64 through hole, and that will accept on the inside edge of each one of these rails a 5/16 threaded insert. So again, get your whackometer and drive it home. Well, I've made a couple more of those jig knobs, and all I'm going to do, I've made some temporary spacers here. So we're gonna sit this where it's supposed to go. We will put our jig knob through the hole, line this up, and tighten it in place. Now this is just a temporary measure while we get some other parts made. But do that on both sides, and well, then we can carry on with the next step. Well, do you remember those 16-inch pieces, 2 inches wide, 3/4 thick that we just made for our platform rails? Well, we need to make 2 more of these pieces. So we will get a 16-inch piece. We're gonna mark in at the end at 1 inch. We're gonna mark our round over to shape it on both ends, and then we're going to shape the entire piece. So in one end of these pieces now, we're going to drill a 3/4 inch diameter through hole, and in the other end, we're going to drill a 3/4 inch diameter hole that's only 1/2 inch deep. But we're going to do like we did with some of the other ones where we drill through and countersink the opposite side, because we need to install a dowel in the one end. And you can see there the countersink on one side and the 1/2 inch deep hole on the other. The last thing we want to do to these two pieces, at least for now, is we need to get a 1/4 inch round over all the way around on both sides of the piece. Okay, and with those pieces made, we can just separate our dowel here and place one of these over the dowel at each end, just like this. One here. We can put that dowel back in. And then we will do the same thing on this side. Okay, we'll do it that way. We'll just slide this side on here, put these back in place. And now all we need to do is cut a length of 3/4 inch dowel that will fit snugly between our two sides here. So take that measurement, remembering to add a 1/2 inch to each edge for the hole, and then we can insert that dowel. So these are the next two pieces that we'll need. And I didn't film the process because it's basically a repeat of everything that we've done so far. This is 3/4 inch thick oak. It's 2 inches wide, and in this case, it's 19 5/8 inch long. I've put a 1 inch radius on each end and then done a 1/4 inch round over on both sides of our piece and sanded it all over. In the center of each one of our circles here, I have drilled a through 5/16 inch hole. So let's head over to our learning tower and I'll show you what happens with these two pieces. Well, if you remember, we have a temporary spacer in between our platform rail and our side piece. So we're going to take out our jig knob here. Once we get that removed, our new piece, our 19 5/8 inch piece, that is going to take its place. So we can place this in here, just like this. And what this is going to end up being is the support for our top piece here. Because this section up top is the rail that keeps the child from falling backwards out of it. So I have a piece of oak here, it's just a scrap, which is holding this square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up exactly where I want it, and once I'm happy with its alignment, I'm going to mark it with the 5/16 inch drill bit, just like we did down here. From there, I'm going to take this top rail out and I'm going to drill it for another 5/16 inch insert with that 7/8 inch hole recess. That's a 1/16 of an inch deep, as well as the 25/64 diameter hole. Then we're going to hit another threaded insert into that piece, and well, we got to use another shop-made jig knob. So I'm going to get that done and I'll show you what we end up with. And now with those inserts installed there, this cross piece, as you raise up the safety bar for the child, this here now with another set of homemade jig knobs or shop-made jig knobs, this will now get secured in place. Now we will have to cut that bolt off. I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to work out, so I left them longer, but we'll trim them just like we had to the other ones. And then you do the same thing on this side. All right, just like that. So at this point now, there's only one thing really left to do here, and that will be to add the slats for our platform. So what I have for our platform slats are 3-inch wide by 1/2 inch thick red oak. I have rounded off the top edge to make it a little softer on little feet, and we're just going to screw these down. We're going to drill them and countersink them and screw them down with equal spacing all the way along, and that will make up our platform for our child to stand on. So we can get that done, and at that point, I think we're pretty much wrapped up on this one. And this here is pretty much the finished product. The only thing that I did extra was on these uprights here, you can see that there is a hole. The reason for that hole is that it allows me to store that piece when it's folded up. One of the stipulations when my daughter asked if I could make this for her was if it could be foldable. So let me just show you how that works. So basically, you need to just remove the jig knobs. So we can spin this one out, and then we spin this one out, and that allows this section to fold down neatly. From there, you can take these jig knobs and they will screw in backwards into these threaded inserts. Once that is done, all you need to do is remove the second set of jig knobs down here at the bottom, and that will allow you to take out your brace piece. So do that on both sides, and that will allow your platform to drop down and fold into the base. From there, you can loosen off these jig knobs just a bit, and this whole section now folds up this way. And then all that's left to do is you take the jig nub that you have left within that 7.5, or that hole that I drilled at 7.5 inches. And again, backwards in here, that allows you to store your brace pieces. And that's it. And then if you're a little tight on space in your house, you don't have space for a large learning tower, you can just take it and store it away. So really the last thing here that I want to do is I'm going to unscrew all of the dowels and place glue in the holes, and we're going to glue all those pieces together to give it a little extra stability. And there you have it. A learning tower. Guys, this piece of furniture, we'll call it, creates a great opportunity for you to do things with your little one, where normally they're down on the ground and can't see what mommy or daddy are doing on the counter or on the workbench. Now they can get up to a level where they can reach things and be able to access it. Now a lot of these that you see online are a solid unit. They're all one piece kind of thing with plywood screwed together, and they take up a big footprint. And my daughter doesn't really have a big footprint to store this thing. So for my granddaughter, this one had to be foldable so that for easy storage. So this is what I ended up designing. Now, if you follow the dimensions in today's show, you can get one exactly like this. And the fact that it's folding is absolutely spectacular. If you're challenged for space and challenged to store things, this thing is right up your alley. Now, the only thing I need left to do here is add a finish to it. So I'm probably going to use a water-based satin finish varnish and give the thing 2 or 3 coats, sanding in between, and that should finish it off just perfectly. But either way, I think someone's going to have a good time using this, well, until she gets too old for it anyway. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's something a little different, and as I've said before, the builds come from many sources, and this one came from necessity. So, it doesn't matter where it came from, it's still a great project. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you would consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Click that bell, and then you won't miss notifications of future episodes of the program. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's project. I hope that you're going to try this for yourself and your little ones. And more importantly, I hope that you are going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video. Guys, obviously this goes without saying. When it comes to this learning tower, please, 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 do not leave the child unattended in this tower. It's not what it's meant for. It is for use with adult supervision at all times. So keep that in mind, guys. Safety for the kids first. Thanks again for tuning in.